A listener sent me a page from a website that he read. It was from KNBC's website in Los Angeles. Their website is NBC4.TV. And I'll read you this piece, and then I will read you what the listener had to say about it. Here it is. Dateline, Los Angeles. A homeless man has been freed from jail after 3 11-year-old girls admitted they made up a story to police that the transient stalked and attacked them. Eric Nordmark had been locked up for 8 months for allegedly attacking the girls in a Garden Grove park. Garden Grove, of course, located in Orange County, west of Anaheim. The 36-year-old man was arrested last spring and charged with 7 felony and misdemeanor charges of assault and child molestation. One of the girls told authorities on Monday that she and her friends made up the story so they wouldn't get in trouble for being late to school. Charges were dropped and Nordmark was released that night. Now, Stuart Fink writes in and he says, any chance you can out the 3 11-year-old girls who maliciously conspired and lied to get an innocent man arrested and imprisoned for 8 months for supposedly molesting them? A little early for the nasty abuse of girl power, and how severe is the punishment for that kind of an act? Doubt there'll be any punishment. He says maybe their mothers would call in. And he says, is it now proper to call an 11-year-old girl a bitch? I'd certainly say so in this case. No doubt about it. This is outrageous, and nobody will be punished for this. They'll say these are 11-year-old girls, they're too young, blah, blah, blah. There won't be a lot of sentiment for the guy because he's homeless. And the parents are like, girls will be girls. You know, that's their attitude about it, apparently. What exactly is the punishment these girls are getting? Well, you know, the worst thing you can do to an 11-year-old girl is to embarrass her. So, if anyone knows the names of these 3 11-year-old girls, we're going to be doing a little investigating. We're going to find out their names, and we're going to be reading them on the air. And as soon as we find who you girls are, you're going to be the most famous 11-year-old girls in Orange County, maybe California, possibly America. Because if that's the kind of thing you think is okay to do, and since the system won't do anything to punish you, I'm going to punish you. And what I'm going to do is going to be completely legal, and you can't touch me with a 10-foot pole. So, for starters here, many of you do live in Orange County. We are one of the highest-rated radio stations in Orange County. And I know there are people out there who know who these girls are. We're not going to take any one person's word for it. We're going to write down all the information from as many sources as we can get it. We're going to verify it. And once we have verified it, we're going to give the names of these girls out on the air. And we're going to keep giving them out on the air until their parents beg us to stop, and then we're going to ask the parents what they're doing about this. Because it stinks. And society won't do a goddamn thing about it, but I'm going to do something about it. So for starters, the very first callers we want to hear from probably won't ever get on the air. They'll only talk to Dino at 1-800-5800-TOM. Do you know the names of these 11-year-old girls, where they live, any information about them? We need as many people who know them as possible to call us so that we can start to try to verify the information. Understand that news organizations protect the names of victims of sexual abuse, victims of sex crimes, victims of sexual assault. But your name is not going to be protected if you are making up charges against somebody else. No. Now you little attention whores are going to get exactly what you thought you wanted. You're going to get lots of attention. Lots of it. And I know there's people in Garden Grove who know who these girls are. Once I have your names, once I've confirmed it's you, you're going to be stars, all of you. What do you think the punishment for this ought to be? That's another kind of call, and that call will make it on the air at 1-800-5800-TOM. 3 11-year-old girls admit after 8 months of imprisonment that a homeless man who was imprisoned because these girls lied and said that he molested them so they wouldn't be in trouble for being late to school. What do you think the punishment for that ought to be? Should there be no punishment? Because I'm telling you, if I don't take action, nobody will. Nothing will be done. Well, what can you do? They're 11-year-old girls. Yeah. Watch what I do. I'm going to get these girls' names, these liars, and if they were adults, they would be full-fledged criminals. And by the way, do 11-year-old girls get a free pass? Maybe there's a police officer or an attorney out there who can tell me. Now, we know that, for example, if you're 11 and you commit murder, there's a different set of circumstances, a different set of penalties for you, unless you were tried as an adult. But 11-year-old girls, are they allowed to do anything they please? Is there a penalty for this? Should there be prosecution of some kind? How does it work? I don't know. But I aim to find out who these girls are and make their lives interesting. No doubt about it. Conveniently, by the way, Channel 4 did not include the girls' names in the story. Well, why are we protecting their identities? Should we protect their identities? Should we? They're not victims of anything. I'm not protecting their identity. So if you know who these girls are, or you're an attorney or a police officer who can tell us whether or not there is a penalty for an 11-year-old girl doing this kind of thing, or if you have an opinion about what should be done to these girls, my lines are open. Tom Leykis.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to Obsidian Radio, the voice of the everyday brother. And it is Wednesday, January 17th, 2018. Welcome to the program. Glad you could make it, and thank you for listening. I appreciate it. 26 degrees outside and lightly snowing here in the city of brotherly love, home of yours truly, the O-Man, the 215, the Philadelphia. 2 minutes past the hour. And ladies and gentlemen, I decided to take this exciting episode of Obsidian Radio, the voice of the everyday brother, where our tagline here is Thinking Black Man's Radio. Some assembly is required. To devote to the latest victim in this season of the witch hunt, otherwise known as the Me Too lynch mob, torches and pitchforks all. Who am I talking about? One Mr. Aziz Ansari, comedic genius and star of the Netflix show Master of None. I understand he attended New York University. Son of the South, born in Columbia, South Carolina. Approximately 34 years old, has an estimated net worth, my understanding, is upwards of $20 million USD. Very successful man. And he is an American success story. He has been destroyed by yet another drive-by by these broads from the Me Too lynch mob. By now you've heard the story. Aziz Ansari met this broad at a Golden Globes ceremony. Took her out on a date. Back to his crib. Sexual action ensues. Nobody was forced. Nobody was raped. Nobody was assaulted. She didn't like the fact that he saw her as little more as a booty call. And so she decides to go and destroy this man. Her conspirators are over at a website called babe.net. Her chief conspirator there being a woman by the name of Katie Way. And of course, the guilty party, the trigger woman, doesn't identify herself. She is truly an assassin. She goes by the nom de plume Grace, a 23-year-old Brooklyn-based photographer. Now, by now, you've heard about all this. Everybody's talking about it in the press. And I have quite a few things to say as well. But before we do that, let's read the following article from the HalcyonAtlantic.com website. The humiliation of Aziz Ansari, written by one Miss Caitlin Flanagan 3 days ago on January 14th, 2018. Miss Flanagan writes, sexual mores in the West have changed so rapidly over the past 100 years that by the time you reach 50, intimate accounts of commonplace sexual events of the young seem like science fiction. You understand the vocabulary and the sentence structure, but all of the events take place in outer space. You're just too old. I respectfully disagree with that. People have been hooking up and having casual sex as long as human beings have been human beings. Whether that was something that was considered socially legitimate or not, we have empirical evidence that bears what I just said out. I'm not saying you have to like it or accept it. I'm not saying that you have to do it. I'm just simply saying that the idea that people just wasn't fucking just for the sake of just fucking, and that's all it was going to be is just fucking, is nothing new. Not by a long shot. At any rate, we continue with Miss Caitlin Flanagan's article. She continues, this was my experience reading the account of one young woman's alleged sexual encounter with Aziz Ansari, published by the website Babe this weekend. The world in which it constituted an episode of sexual assault was so far from my own two experiences of near-date rape, which took place respectively during the Carter and Reagan administrations, roughly between the kidnapping of the Iran hostages and the start of the Falklands War, that I just couldn't pick up the tune. But like the recent New Yorker story of Cat Person, about a soulless and disappointing hookup between two people who mostly knew each other through texts, the account has proved deeply resonant and meaningful to a great number of young women who have responded in large numbers on social media, saying that it is frighteningly and infuriatingly similar to crushing experiences of their own. It is therefore worth reading, and in its own way is an important contribution to the present conversation. Here's how the story goes. A young woman who was given the identity-protecting name Grace in the story was excited to encounter Ansari at a party in Los Angeles, and even though he initially brushed her off, when he saw that they both had the same kind of old-fashioned camera, he paid attention to her and got her number. He texted her when they both got back to New York, asking whether she wanted to go out, and she was so excited. She spent a lot of time choosing her outfit and texting pictures of it to her friends. They had a glass of wine at his apartment, and then he rushed her through dinner at an expensive restaurant and brought her back to his apartment. Within minutes of returning, she was sitting on the kitchen counter, and he was apparently consensually performing oral sex on her. Here the older reader's eyes widen, because this is hardly the first move in the one-night stands of yesteryear. Again, that's bunk. But then went on, per her account, to pressure her for sex in a variety of ways that were not honorable. So stop right there. See, she didn't have no problem with him going down on her. She just didn't want to reciprocate. Eventually overcome by her emotions at the way the night was going, she told him, "You guys are all the fucking same," and I left crying. Oh, because you were okay with him going down on you while you sat your ass on his kitchen counter. But when it comes time for you to go ahead and swallow, the meat sword, now all of a sudden you got a problem. Right. Miss Flanagan continues, I thought it was the most significant line in the story. This has happened to her many times before. You think? What led her to believe that this time would be any different? Indeed. Miss Flanagan continues, I was a teenager in the late 1970s, long past the Great Awakening. Sexual intercourse began in 1963, which was plenty of time for me, but as far away from girl power as World War I was from the Tet Offensive. The great girl-shaping institutions Significantly, the magazines and advice books and novels that I devoured were decades away from being handed over to actual girls and young women to write and edit, and they were still filled with the cautionary advice and moralistic code of the 1950s. With the exception of the explicit physical details, stories like Grace's, which usually appeared in the form of as told to, and which were probably the invention of editors and the work product of middle-aged women writers, were so common as to be almost regular features of these cultural products. In fact, the bitterly disappointed girl crying in a taxi muttering "they're all the same" was almost a trope. Make a few changes to Grace's story and it would fit right into the narrative of those books and magazines which would have dissected what happened to her in a pitiless way. When she saw Ansari at the party, she was excited by a celebrity. Grace said it was surreal to be meeting up with Ansari, a successful comedian and major celebrity, which the magazines would have told us was shallow. He brushed her off, but she kept after him, which they would have called desperate. Doing so meant ignoring her actual date of the evening, which they would have called cruel. Agreeing to meet at his apartment instead of expecting him to come to her place to pick her up, they would have called unwise. Ditto drinking with him alone. Drinking, we are told, could lead to a girl getting carried away, which was the way female sexual desire was always characterized in these things, as in she got carried away the night of the prom. Really what we're talking about here is giving women plausible deniability. We're going to talk about this later on. Just work with me as we go through this article. As for what happened sexually, the writers would have blamed her completely. What was she thinking? Getting drunk with an older man she hardly knew after revealing her eagerness to get close to him. The signal rule about dating from its inception in the 1920s to right around the time of the Falklands War was that if anything bad happened to a girl on a date, it was her fault. Those magazines didn't prepare teenage girls for sports or STEM or huge careers, the kind of world-conquering, taking numbers strength that is the common language of the most middle-of-the-road cultural products aimed at today's girls was totally absent. But in one essential aspect, they reminded us that we were strong in a way that so many modern girls are weak. They told us over and over again that if a man tried to push you into anything you didn't want, even just a kiss, you told him flat out you weren't doing it. If he kept going, you got away from him. You were always to have mad money with you, cab fare in case he got fresh, and then refused to drive you home. They told you to slap him if you had to. They told you to get out of the car and start wailing if you had to. Let me just stop right there. I've talked about this before. I've actually put women out of my car. I remember I went on a date once, and I talked about this on the air, but I'll go ahead and briefly recap it. Recap it. I went out on a date. This was like, I was still in my teenage years. I must have been like 19, I guess. And I took this girl out. Had my big Buick back then. Deuce and a quarter. The old heads out there know what I'm talking about. And, I was going to take her to Olive Garden, take her to, get ice, big sundae at the Friendly and all the rest of it. And she immediately jumped into how she needed this, she needed that, she needed to get her hair did, nails did, she needed a new dress and all the rest of it. I pulled over and said, look, I'll tell you what. Since it's pretty clear that you need all these things, I need my dick sucked. I need my dick sucked the way Vanessa Del Rio sucks dick. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Instead of me taking you out, movie, dinner, dessert and all that, what we'll just do is we'll just go to a secluded spot. You suck my dick like Vanessa Del Rio and I'll give you the money. And nobody has to know about it. It'll be our secret. And then she started, wailing at that point. I said, okay, take me back home. I said, no problem. No problem. I hit the electric door lock and said, you're free to go. She said, you're not going to drive me back home? I said, you're not going to suck my dick? And she got out of my car. Don't slam my door. And she saw her way back home. Whether she walked home, took a cab, maybe she had mad money. I don't give a shit. See, a big part of this issue that's going on right now, a lot of women in general, but in particular, white women. In particular, white women. They like to play the plausible deniability game. This chick was on the make for Ansari. She was on the make. And Ansari did a few things that I think kind of put him in a trick bag of sorts. But this isn't about what Ansari did. This is about what a lot of these white women do. Because, a lot of stuff had been written about Ansari, talking about how he jokes about getting with white girls. So let's just go ahead and go there. I've talked about this before. Aziz Ansari is an honorary white guy. I talked about this before. Who am I talking about when I say honorary white guys? I'm talking about guys from India. I'm talking about guys from Pakistan. I'm talking about guys from the Middle East. I'm talking about guys from the Pacific Rim. You get what I'm talking about. China, Japan, Korea. Roosh V of Persian, Reed, Iranian heritage, honorary white guy. See, these guys, they got a thing for white women. Make of that what you will. I mean, you think sisters, and I say to the sisters, you think brothers got it bad. Nuh-uh. Nobody beats the honorary white guy. And they're honorary white guys because they live in a white world. They move in a white world. They tend to be highly educated. And they tend to move in the upper middle class white world. Like Aziz Ansari. And their preferred female is white. Very white. Nordic white. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But see, what a lot of people don't want to deal with is that a lot of white women want to play this poly pure heart game. And I have to say, with all due respect to my brothers from other mothers, the reason why they've gotten away with this for so long is because you guys have allowed it. If you just step back for a minute and all this Me Too nonsense going on, and I've just been laying in the cut and wondering if people have been seeing what I've been seeing. Have you noticed that you really haven't heard much on the black hand side of things? Even though the irony here is that the whole thing was originally started and founded by a sister, and then it got completely hijacked by, white women. But have you noticed that there really hasn't been too much said on the black hand side of things? And I'm going to tell you the reason why. I'm going to tell you the reason why, then we're going to continue with the article. The reason why you haven't really heard that much on the black side of things is because, number one, black women can't work the poly pure heart game. They can't do that. See, white women can still make that work. I suspect after this whole situation went down, that's going to come to a screeching halt in a minute. But up until now, white women have been able to get away with the poly pure heart piece, largely because white men put them up on a pedestal. And, other, honorary white guys, they kind of go along with that. Brothers don't do that. Here we got to go and give big respect to our brothers in the hip hop community. We don't love them hoes, man. What did Chris Brown say? These hoes ain't loyal. What did Jay-Z say? Fuck them all day, fuck them all night. We don't love these hoes. See, black women can't get away with the poly pure heart piece. They can't get away with it. Either they fucking or they ain't. Ain't gonna be all this nonsense about going out on bad dates and all the rest of it. Just like I told you with the date with the one sister tried to, nickel and dime me. Either we fucking or we not. If we not fucking, you need to get out of my car. I'll pull over right here. I'll never forget. We was out on City Line Avenue. I never forget this shit. We was out on City Line Avenue here in Philly. People that know Philly know what I'm talking about. We out on the main line, City Line Avenue, and I let her out right there. I pulled over. Must have been close to St. Joe's University. I pulled right over and let her right out. You got right here. And if you recall the situation with Tavis Smiley, the situation with Nelly, look at how those things got resolved with the quickness. With the quickness. See, brothers don't take this shit lying down. No. Maybe you could chalk that up to the fact that black men know what it's like to be, strung up, from trees behind bullshit like this. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But for whatever reason, we brothers don't take that shit. You ain't doing none of this stuff right here. And I think it's going to take a brother, and it's going to take brothers to put an end to this shit. And that's what we're going to do today here at Obsidian Radio. I have come up with the Me Too Antidote. We're going to stop this today. This mob mentality, this blatant disrespect and regard for due process, this anonymous, McCarthyism type of shit. Oh, no. We're going to put an end to it today. We're going to stop it today. Miss Flanagan continues in her piece. Was Grace frozen, terrified, stuck? No. She tells us that she wanted something from Ansari and that she was going to try to figure out how to get it. She wanted affection, kindness, attention. No, she was a fame-seeking attention whore. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not against the law. Let's call spade a spade. And when she discovered that she was nothing but a booty call, she got mad and then tried to destroy this man. We got something for her. Oh, yes. Let's continue. She wanted affection, kindness, and attention. Perhaps she hoped to be, maybe even become a famous man's girlfriend. But he wasn't interested. What she felt afterward, rejected yet another time by yet another man, was regret. And what she and the writer who told her story created was 3,000 words of revenge porn. Stop right there. Now, y'all all remember what happened last year with one Miss Black China and Rob Kardashian. You heard black women. I'm looking at you, Ms. Stein. You know, talking all this stuff about revenge porn, want to get it, lawsuit and all the rest of it. Where are they now? Because this is what happened here. What this woman did and her conspirator, what's her name now? Her conspirator, one Miss K. Way, over on the babe.net website. That is revenge porn, man. And that needs to be addressed. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. No, fuck it. We're going to talk about it right now. If I'm Aziz Ansari, if I got damn near $20 million to work with, babe.net is a thing of the past. I'm going full Liberace on these bitches. Look it up. Look him up. I'm suing babe.net. I'm suing one Miss K-Way. I'm going to find out, deal with this Grace bitch. All of them going down. All of them going down. I got my Hebrew lawyers on speed dial with that shit. If I'm Aziz Ansari, I'm making an example of all three. This is what happens when you play with fire and you get burnt, ladies. Miss Flanagan continues, the clinical detail in which the story is told is intended not to validate her account as much as it is to hurt and humiliate Ansari. See what I'm saying? Oh, he got a good case. He got a good case. If I was him, it's already a done deal. Together, the two women may have destroyed Ansari's career, which is how now the punishment for every kind of male sexual misconduct, from the grotesque to the disappointing. But see, that's just it. Ansari did nothing wrong. You know what he did wrong? He didn't do what this broad wanted him to do. No, you was a booty call, sis. And here is where I'm going to hold Ansari accountable. Here is where I'm going to hold him accountable. Let me bring it back to since they want to talk about race. Let's bring it back to race. See, brothers, we're much more forward with it. Me, I'm to the point of brutally frank. If we ain't fucking, there's nothing for us to talk about. We fuck first and then we go out later. We fuck first and then we hang out and chop it up with. It may indeed be that I like your company after we done busted nuts and whatever, and I've thoroughly railed you over my couch and watch you service the black monolith with the appropriate propitiations in front of my huge mirror. It may be that after all that's concluded that you may be a pretty cool chick to hang with. That may indeed be the case, and if so, we can hang out and, and who knows, something may develop from that. I'm a witness to the fact that many a great relationship has developed out of a strong fucking session. That's possible. But my primary concern, my primary interest is fucking first. If we ain't fucking, there's really nothing else for us to talk about. Now, I see Aziz Ansari, he's interested in the vintage cameras and all the rest of it. See, my thing is, I can go online and talk to other dudes about vintage cameras, man. For that matter, I can go online and talk about vintage cameras with other women if I wanted to. It's just like with me, for example. I'm a turntablist. That's what I did when I was in my high school years through my 20s. And, you hear a lot of the music that I play on this show. You're hearing one track in the background. Played a big role in my coming of age years. For those of y'all that know Philadelphia very well, you know about Carmen Skating Rink. You know about the Great Skate and Dancing Skate and all the rest of it. You know about these places. So, I could go ahead and talk about turntablism with dudes from around the world. I don't need to be chopping it up with a woman at a party about that. My primary focus and reason as a man who have achieved power, money, power, and fame is getting all I can and canning all I can get. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with a man that wants to fuck. Nothing. And if a woman doesn't want to, all she has to do is say, no thank you. The end. And where I do get on and sorry is that. Because a lot of these dudes, a lot of these Indian dudes and Pakistani dudes and all the rest of it, man, I hate to call, people names and stuff like that. But if there's a such thing as a frustrated, an average frustrated chump, they would be it as a group. Because of their socialization is just so bad. So he should have had the wherewithal to just put it right out there on the table. Hey, look, I'm trying to get you back to the crib. This is what us brothers do all the time. Sisters don't like it, but it don't change nothing. Hey, listen, I'm trying to hit that. I'm trying to watch them dick sucking lips on my rod in front of my big mirror. What's up? Are you up or down? What's up? Because if not, okay, move aside, please. Let me go over here and holler at my man's real quick, buy him a drink. I don't even buy women drinks. I buy other guys drinks. Especially in the environment that we're in right now. They need a drink. You either want to fuck or you don't. That's how our brothers get down. And me, I just like being, really exaggerated with. So I let it be known right up front. I'm trying to fuck, man. So when we not fucking from the rip, there's nothing else for us to talk about. I'm not interested in talking about turntablism with you, vintage equipment, sampling stuff. I'm not interested in talking about that with you. I got men all over the world that I could talk about vintage cameras and all that kind of shit with. My primary interest with you is being bent over my couch and watching you pleasure me in my mirror. That's my primary interest. If you're interested in that, great. Let's go. If not, step aside. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not illegal. It's not immoral. I was listening to some dudes online the other day talking about ethics of dating, which is interesting because really what we mean is ethics for men in dating. We don't talk about ethics for women in dating. Women do all kind of, cockamamie, skullduggery type of shit, which is what we're talking about right now with this quote-unquote grace broad. And they not only get away with it, we justify and legitimate and rationalize their skullduggery as a society. Which is what we're doing right now with this Me Too bullshit. Anonymous bullshit. Anti-American and un-American bullshit. So, my brothers listening, be you my brothers in jeans or my brothers from another mother, be proud of the fact that you just upfront with yours. Are we fucking or what? I'm trying to hit that. I need to see them dick sucking lips on this here. And if we ain't doing that, then there's nothing else for us to talk about. Step aside, please. Thank you. Be proud. Be proud that you said that. Because you did her a favor. You was upfront with that shit. She knew right from the rip what you all about. Now, she want to do it or she don't. See, white America, a lot of white women get away with this shit. Because again, like I said, a lot of white men put these women on the pedestal. But see, in black America, we know the deal. We know black women, when they want to fuck, when they see a guy that they want to fuck, and all that other extra extraneous shit, talking about, MacGuffin type discussions about shit that don't have nothing to do with nothing. You don't need all that. They just go right back to the hut and get going. See, we know that. We brothers know that. We've seen it. So we've either directly, personally experienced it, and or we've seen it so many times around us. To the point where black women can't get away with shit like this. It doesn't even work. That's the reason why the whole thing with Mike Tyson back in the day was such a big story. That was the reason why that whole thing went down. And had it been a black jury, a black judge, Tyson wouldn't have went to jail. So I'm sorry, I have to say that this is a white thing. And the good thing about all this on the black hand side of things, this sort of thing rarely happens. Now, that's not to say that sex assault and stuff like that don't happen in the black community. It does. It just shit like this, that type of thing don't happen because brothers are real upfront with it. Compared to white guys and honorary white guys, we're seriously upfront with it. I pride myself on saying, hey, look, I'm about fucking. So we ain't fucking, there's nothing else to talk about. Bone now, chop it up later. We ain't going out on no dates first until we fucking. After that, then we can talk about going out and stuff like that. Really is that simple. Anyway, let's continue this article. 24 hours ago, this is the speed at which we are now operating. Aziz Ansari's was a man whom many people admired and whose work, although very well paid, also performed a social good. He was the first exposure many young Americans had to a Muslim man who was aspirational, funny, immersed in the same culture they are. Now he has been, in a professional sense, assassinated on the basis of one woman's anonymous account. Stop right there. That brings us to the leadoff segment that you heard of the one and only Mr. Tom Likas, who years ago talked about this very same situation. And if you know anything about me, you know I ain't into, reinventing the wheel. I just use what already has proven to work and put my own spin on it. Miss Flanagan is 100% correct. Ansari was assassinated in the social media by a heretofore unknown assassin who goes by the name of Grace. Well, I say it's high time that we men went on the offensive. How do we do that, you ask? Simple. We out these broads. We put their whole name and other public information about them on blast. Everybody will know who people like Grace are, who destroy innocent men because of their own fucked up issues that they need to be in therapy for. And since it's clear that women will not, it's not that they cannot, they will not rein in the crazies among their gender. Since it's clear that the mainstream media won't step in on this, since it's clear that the academy, the entertainment world won't step in on this thing and allow an innocent man to be lynched, a high-tech lynching, as Clarence Thomas once famously said. Since it's clear that they don't want to do anything about it, it's up to us laymen to do something about it. It's time for us everyday brothers to do something about it. The brothers listening right now, somebody knows who this Grace woman is. She's a 23-year-old white woman living in Brooklyn who's a professional photographer. How many can there be? We need to find this woman. We need to find out her real name. We need to find out where she lives. We need to find out where she works. And we need to put it on fucking blast. We don't need to threaten her. We don't need to contact her. We don't need to send her any messages. We just simply need to go to our own social media. This is the woman who assassinated an innocent man in the media. And then we need to make sure that websites like babe.net and Miss Katie Way understand what goes on here. If you assist an assassin in assassinating an innocent man with no due process, this is what's going to happen to you. We need to start putting these broads on blast. That's what we need to do. And that's what's going to happen here at Obsidian Radio. I am calling attack beer. I'm calling for the brothers in the regiments to form up and find out who this woman is. Her internet name is Grace. She's a 23-year-old white poly pure heart broad living out in Brooklyn as a photographer. We need to find out who she is so we can put her real name on blast. I have said for the longest time in black American society that black women are, sexual marketplace socialists. They are decidedly anti-American. Well, now you see what's going on in the whiter society. A lot of women don't give a fuck about the American process. They don't give a fuck about due process laws. We've seen this in the college campuses. Now we're seeing it in just general society. The buck stops here. Now let me say something else, because I know we're going to hear it. Well, Obsidian, you're making excuses for sexual predators. No, I'm not. See, that's something else that we don't like fucking with, is the truth. The truth of the matter is that sexual assault, rape, and all the rest of it has seen all-time lows since records have been kept in the early 1970s. Don't believe me? Check in with Steven Pinker, whose magnum opus was a book called The Better Angels of Our Nature While Violence Has Declined. Pinker is no friend of the manosphere. He is a Canadian, Jewish, stomped down to the left feminist. He brings data and facts to a fields fight. Women don't want to accept the fact that the guys who are true sickos and sexual predators and rapists are a statistically small number of men. The vast majority of men are not that. They don't want to accept that fact because they don't want to accept the fact that guys like Aziz Ansari just wants to get his dick wet. A man getting his dick wet is the same as a guy who's a sexual predator in the minds of a lot of women. Wrong. If you don't want to be down with the get down, then you need to say no and keep it the fuck moving. That's what you need to do. And if you want to turn the fact that you mad because you was a booty call and now you want to try to get some revenge porn, well, we're going to make an example out of you. We're going to find out your real name. We're going to find out where you work. And we're going to find out where you live. And we're just going to put it out there. Matter of fact, we need to make our own registry of bad, shitty women. Remember that, shitty men media list? That hit list that was anonymous? We need to put our own list together, fellas, of bad women, where their real names and occupations and addresses are. We need to make our own registry. You do shit like this, this is what will happen to you. Want to be a dinner whore? This is what will happen to you. Try to pin a baby on a man and you know it ain't his? This is what will happen to you. Try to do a Tawana Brawley or a Crystal Gale Mangum? This is what will happen to you. You will be a pariah in polite society. We'll fix it to where men, when they see you coming down the street, they just don't cross to the other side. They cross to the other continent. You will be banished forever. Where's my echo box at? Forever. Fucking around with guys like me. It's time that men started to fight back. Fight back against this shit. This isn't American. Aziz Ansari barely had a chance to defend himself against this bullshit. It's time that we dealt with the lynch mob. Because that's what this is. That's what Me Too is. It's a lynch mob. Women are mad because they don't like the fact that their cases so often are so fucking weak. There's a reason why we have a high burden of proof for murder, for rape. Because we take those crimes seriously. And this brings home another point. A lot of these women don't give a shit about the rape and all the rest of it. If they did, they wouldn't act like that. And for the women out there who are victims of rape and all the rest of it, I'm sorry, you in that number too. Because if you weren't, you would be out there saying what I'm saying right now instead of me. Isn't it interesting that you don't hear no women out there doing that? We saw this last year with Black China. Sophia Nelson and all them, they ran to her defense. It's the same thing happening right now. I know what you're going to say. Peyton Flanagan and Ashley Bainfield, they're pissing in the wind. And you know it. So the only way this thing is going to stop is when everyday guys like us stand up and say no. They've gone this far, no further. We need to start outing these broads. We need to start dealing with these assassins. If a crime has been committed, there is a way to deal with that. It's called the courts. That is the appropriate forum. And for those women out there who want to make it out like, that a man wanting to fuck is a crime, no, it's not a crime. If you don't want to fuck, all you need to do is say no and keep it pushing. You're not going to change men from wanting to fuck. If you can't handle the fact that a man just wants to fuck you, then that's your problem. You need to go and get help. That's what you need to do. That is my position, ladies and gentlemen. I could read the rest of this article, but you'll see it yourself. It'll be posted up in the links in the comments section. That's my antidote, ladies and gentlemen, to this Me Too madness. We need to go on the offensive as men. And we need to make it clear to any woman who does some skullduggery shit like this, there will be hell to pay. It will cost you. You will have the scarlet letter for the ages. Don't want to fuck a guy, keep it moving. There is remedies to deal with true sexual predators. That you don't like it, or that you feel humiliated that you have to actually prove your argument, that's your problem. The truth of the matter is that the vast majority of men, including Aziz Ansari, ain't sexual predators. They do want to fuck. And my advice to NC's Azaris of the world is the man to fuck up and say that. It's not a crime to want to fuck a woman. It's not a crime. Stop letting these people psyops your ass into shame. There's nothing wrong with that shit. There's everything right with it. If she ain't down with it, then all she needs to do is just say no and keep it pushing. Y'all guys need to take a page out of our book for a change. Tavis Smiley, Nelly. Sisters know they can't do no crazy shit like that because they know we ain't taking it lying down. They know that. That's my take on this whole situation. That is my solution. We need to start making some examples out of some of these bitches. Then you'll see the whole thing change. You're listening to Obsidian Radio, which is 100% supported by listeners like you. And if you like what you heard on today's podcast talk show heard only on YouTube, then what the heck are you waiting for? Put 5 on it and become one of the 300 Patreons I need to stay on the air getting bigger and better. All the details are going to be over on my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/Mumia Obsidian Ali. Do it now. You'll be glad that you did. For those who wish to become soldados in the invisible army over on here at Obsidian Radio, all you need to do is hit up yours truly first at theobsidianfiles@hotmail or at gmail.com. Put in the subject line donations, and I'll be sure to walk you through from there. $5, $5,000. You give whatever you think the show is worth on a recurring monthly basis. I shall greatly and deeply appreciate that. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This and other channels in the Obsidian Media universe. Please don't forget to bang the bell so you know what yours truly's got cooking back in the kitchen for you. And last but not least, please share this podcast with a brother that you know, love, and respect. The life you save may very well be his. My name is Mumia Obsidian Ali, and I approved this message. You anti-un-American, not trying to seek any due process, pitchfork and torch-bearing bitches. Stay tuned. We're going to come back. Peace.
This is not about revenge.
Liar!
This is about saving the future of humanity!
Jean-Luc, blow up the damn ship!
No! No! I will not sacrifice the Enterprise. We've made too many compromises already. Too many retreats. They invade our space, and we fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and we fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.